It's a great day. My name is Les Brown, the Happy Entrepreneur, and welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show, the #1 business development and revenue-focused late-night show in the country where we are on a mission. And our mission really is to inspire, our mission is to empower, and our mission is to provide you, that's right, you, the hard-working entrepreneur, with all of the resources that are necessary to execute that big vision you have for the people you were called to serve. And on this episode, we have the one and only, she's in the building, Carolyn Wilson, and she'll be talking about, well, at the end of the day, the business behind the story for your brand. What's going on, Carolyn Wilson? How you doing?
I'm doing amazing. And how about you? How about you? As Les would say, I'm doing well, and so are you.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of this show. And thank you to viewers. Thank you for tuning in, especially during these remarkable times. We appreciate your time. My promise is this will be a good use of your time. But Carolyn, I'm curious. For folks that are tuning in, they're watching, they're reading the title, The Business Behind the Story. Here's the question. I know it's going to sound obvious, but it's so true. Why do businesses struggle with sharing their story these days? What's holding them back?
Dare I say it, being corporately conditioned? It's corporately conditioned. We, while we're in school, we learn what they teach us, other stuff, other ways, methods, other pathways, other directions for what we should be doing. It's almost like we're on an assembly line. Okay, so this is your path. So you learn this. Okay, this is your path. You learn that. And on these paths, there's certain tasks that you must do on these paths. But where do you come into the play? You're just on autopilot based on what you've learned, based on what you took in. And now that becomes your narrative. But that's not it. And then we wonder why it doesn't feel right, because it's not you.
What do you say to the person that's listening right now that says, Shay, can you let them know that I don't have one of those rag the richest stories. I don't have stories like these other businesses. Matter of fact, I don't think my story is that unique or different anyway, because everyone's kind of doing what I'm doing. They've been through what I've been through. So I guess the question I would ask is for the person that's feeling like their story is not unique, which I know is a loaded question, okay, but they feel like their brand story is not unique. What would you say to that person listening now?
I would tell them that every story matters. That's cliche, but it's so true. Your story, look, let me get closer. Your story matters. Your story matters because here's the thing. Your story is your business, and your business is your story. And that's because when you think about a lot of times, when someone starts a business, they say, oh, what's the reason why you started it? And then there's a story behind why and how you started your business. But really, your business was already in you based on your story. I need people to think about that. So like for myself, I don't have a rags to riches story either. At least I don't see it that way. But my story is very common, but you would not equate it to how do you make that a business? I was molested. I was molested by my biological father. I had all of the check marks against me in life. But I somehow still went through that corporate conditioning, went to school, did the path, learned about business, doing business for someone else, learned to do accounting, learned to do finances, learned to do CEOing for someone else, but never learned it for myself because I was hiding the other story, the other narrative, because that didn't match being in the boardrooms. That didn't match being in leadership. That didn't match. But I wonder why, even though I was in the boardroom and even though I was in, leadership and I was doing all the things that I was doing in corporate America and through nonprofit and through government, any of the entities that I found myself in, it still didn't feel right because it wasn't my story. Like there was a story that got me there, like, oh, I used to work at McDonald's and I decided one day I don't want to do it. So I go applied for Prudential and I got hired. That's the story to how I got to Prudential. And then, oh, well, I worked at Prudential for over 20 years. So you know what? I'm really good at insurance. So I'm going to be an insurance agent. Oh, I have a degree in finance. So guess what? I'm going to do corporate taxes because I know how to do it. But that's not your story. A lot of us are in positions and doing things, and we're great at it. Don't get me wrong, we're great at it. But those are the skills that we need to apply to ourselves, to our own story. That's why I say the business behind your story. So my story of being molested, my story of being in domestic violence relationships, my story of being, bouts with homelessness and depression, and all of the things that are taboo that people don't want to talk about, has become my business. It has become my business to help people tap into their story, because their story can impact, because it's about the impact. It's really about the impact first, right? First and foremost, because that's how I'm serving, because my story is not for me, it's for someone else. So it's the impact that it makes first. Because when you tell your story, someone else can say, wow, I resonate with that. And if she can do it or he can do it, then maybe there's a chance for me too. I don't have to go on this rat race that I'm still on. There's another path for me, and it's the path that was already designed and destined for me. It's just that I was taken off of it by all of the conditioning that we all have endured since day one. So the impact first. And then, because you're making the impact, that leads to your brand. That becomes who you are. That becomes your identity. It no longer becomes the titles that you have, because the titles are the titles that you earned. But the titles that you really have are what you are innately. That's your
Mm.
automatic gift, right? And so
Hmm.
then your brand, so you have your impact, then you have your brand, right? And then it leads to your community or your movement that surrounds, and that's the business. So your story is your business, and your business is your story. I know it's a different way of thinking of it, but that all comes with when you change your mindset. See, now we're gonna get into mindset stuff. We have to change the paradigm. We have to think differently. Once you can think out of the box, once you can think something that you're not taught, it's just something that's innately in you, and you go with it. You feel that fear, you feel the thing, because you might feel like, oh, I feel like I should be doing something, but society and everything around you tells you, no, you don't have the pedigrees, you don't have the degrees, you don't have the know-how, you don't have the finances, you don't have, so you believe it, and you just go to what you know, and that's to get back on this rat race, that's to get back on this conveyor belt, that's to get back on this position that you have, or this job that you have. It's a job, but your life is not a job. Your life is a calling. Your life is an assignment because of your story. Your story turns into your business. And I think if people start to understand that and see it in that mindset, then I think that they'll find pure joy in everything that they do.
Mm, I love
Not
the pure
happy,
joy in everything that they do.
right? Not happiness, joy, because
Hmm.
joy comes from within.
Ah, I love that. Now, they're watching, they're listening, saying, "Hey, I get it. I need to tell the story." And ladies and gentlemen, we can't turn this into a training session, but certainly I can ask her, "What's one, two, or three things you could do to tell your story?" Like if you could reach out across those fiber optic lines right now, Carolyn, and you had an opportunity to step back and say, "Hey, look." If you want to know how to tell your company story or your brand story, here's a methodology, here's a framework that you could use. What would you share with us?
It's really simple. First, you have to know your story. You have to know what it is, because we have many stories, many stories. But what is that one thing that is really, that's, as we call, our signature story, right? Know your story. Then once you know your story, then you just have to craft the message behind it. Just be able to tell your story, and be okay with telling it. Be okay with being uncomfortable. Like, I had to be okay with telling that I was molested by my father. Like, now I can tell you, like, oh yeah, my father molested me. Like, it's no big deal. But before, oh, I hid that. Like, you have to be okay with your story. How do you tell it? And how do you tell it in a way that it doesn't create sympathy? I don't want sympathy from anybody. I want you to see empowerment. I want you to be inspired when you hear my story and when you see my story, right? Because you're going to see it, you're going to feel it, and you're going to hear it. It has to be all three of those things. So know your story, craft the message to your story, know the purpose of your story. Purpose, the purpose of your story. And that's going to all unfold as you're knowing your story, because you're learning who you are and you're learning about this path that you're on. And then you just share it. Then you just share it. It's deeper, but it's really that simple. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Know it, know how to tell it, understand the purpose about it, and then just share it.
Just share it. Now, there's the other side to it, because I know for many, many years, up until very recently, I didn't want to share the bad side of my story because I felt people would judge me. And the question I'm going, ladies and gentlemen, is how does Carolyn coach or advise her students that she work with to not worry about the judgment side? I was like, man, if they learned I filed bankruptcy, no one's going to want to work with me. If they found out that my car was repossessed, no one's going to work with me. If they found out I've been through 2 divorces because, I just couldn't get it, no one's going to work with me. So my question is, what do you advise? How do you advise your students or clients you work with to deal with that part where they feel like people might judge them, so they want to keep it in a closet?
Right. That's a great question. It's about being vulnerable. It's one thing to be transparent, because you can definitely say, okay, my car was repossessed. And I can say that too. My car was repossessed. I'm not immune to that, right? Life happens, life be life and all the time. But it's when you can become vulnerable and once again, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And once you can learn how to have that stance, then it really creates you being resilient to anything and everything that comes your way. Willie Jolly says, a setback is a setup for a comeback. That's our life. Our life will continuously give us curveballs. So how do you combat it? You combat it by just building yourself up strong, because things are going to happen. Like it just will. It just will. It's inevitable.
How did you deal with the fear of overcoming speaking? I mean, fear of speaking is like the number one thing. Most of folks would rather fall out of a plane than to get up in front of folks and speak. So I guess my question is, what's your backstory to overcoming, the fear of speaking in front of people?
Speaking about, once again, I said some of the things that we've learned has prepared us for our calling, and we didn't even realize it. So I'm not shading anyone with jobs, because guess what? I still have a job too, right? So, and I've had jobs, but all of the skills that I've learned, like for instance, the public speaking, you have to speak at the meeting, with the boss, or you have to, I don't know, like I said, you talk with your team. Those are little blips of public speaking. At church, you may have to read the bulletin or the announcement. Those are little blips with it. Now, when I was in college and we had to do our presentations, I just was okay, I'm just going to just do it. You get through the nerves, you get through, it's practice, it's practice, it's practice. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you just have to do it. And the more you do it, the more you practice, the better you get. Just like with being an athlete, the more you practice, the better you get at it. Like drawing, anything, any skill. This is a skill. Speaking is a skill. So just continue to do it. And it doesn't have to look like a stage. I just gave some examples. The meeting at the job, talking to your children, being at the family reunion, saying, okay, I'll get up and I'll say like a charge to the family. Read the scripture when you're at church or the synagogue or the mosque. Those are different opportunities to speak. And then when it's time to get on stage, you've already had your stage, your informal stage, before you have your formal stage.
I love it. And that's a great segue, because it sounds like your life's been perfect up to a certain part. You have some stuff in the background, and we have a segment here that I think is very on point for what you're talking about, called "Today is my January 1st." Now, for those folks who tune in every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you know what we're about to do. We're about to say those magic words. You can say it with me. Today is my January 1st. Happy New Year to you, by the way. And for all the new folks who are tuning in for the very first time, today is my January 1st is our personal mantra here at the Happy Entrepreneur Show. It represents a fresh start. It represents a do-over. It means our past, no matter how dark and gloomy that past is or how bright and sunny that past is, the past no longer equals the future. And so my question for the one and only Carolyn Wilson on the other side is really twofold. Number one, when you hear those words, today is my January 1st, what do you hear? What do you hear? And number two, what was a time in your life there was a setback, and how were you able to bounce back from it?
Ooh, when I hear that today is my January 1st, it reminds me of a quote that I have, and that says, "Today is the day I'm going to make it happen." It's today, because tomorrow's not on the calendar. Neither is someday or one day. There are days: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and today, because you have a calendar that sometimes says today. That's when you do things now. So when I hear that, that's what I think of. But a time that the one that I can say that was the most prevalent, and which actually catapulted me to me really embracing the power of my story over time, right, was when I found out that my abuser, which was my father, had molested another child. And that child just happened to be my sister that I didn't even know that I had. And that set me into a spiral of depression, of anger, of sadness, of hopelessness, all the emotions. I think I felt every single last one of them. And it really, that's what catapulted me, to be quite honest. Once I got through part of those things, it came to a point where I just started writing. I just started writing because I didn't know what else to do. I went to therapy. Ooh, yes, I said the word. I went to therapy. I know that's not, it's taboo in our community, but it helps. It works. Not, I'm not talking about TLC. Well, it is TLC for yourself, right? So, also, finding a support group that of like-minded individuals. We go to networking events for business entrepreneurs. Like, this is a business entrepreneur show, but guess what? I was molested, so that therefore it was incest. So I needed to find other incest survivors because we spoke the same language, and that helped me understand and grow within myself. And those are the things that I had to learn and go through that process. It wasn't an easy process. Oh boy, not the least bit. But I knew that I deserved it, because all prior to then, I kept wondering what was up with my life because it just didn't feel right. Remember, I told you, being corporately trained, like, I can get into the boardroom, I can go and speak in front of the CEO or the president of the organization, and I can come up with business plans, and I can do all of those things, those skills, but it just never felt right. It never felt like it completed me. And I just never understood why. But see, be careful what you ask for, because I kept asking God, I'm like, something has to give because my life doesn't make sense. Here it is, I done accomplished all these great things in the midst of my mess, by the way. I had my children were able to go to great schools in the midst of my mess, by the way. But yet, it still didn't feel complete. So God showed me a way for me to make myself complete. And that was to no longer run from my story. And so that's why I had to just dive into it. So I had to make a choice. See, that's the other part that people don't know. It's a choice. You have a choice for your healing. You have a choice for your story. You have a choice for your life. Although it's already predestined, but you still have a choice. God gives us free will. It's all up to you whether you want to walk through that door, even though you don't even know what's in it. And I walk through many doors. And as long as I keep walking through the doors, they will continue to open. As soon as I shut the door, then everything else shuts off. So my thing is, I say that your yeses will continue to get you more yeses. Your no's will get you nowhere. So just be fearless. When you're fearless, life becomes limitless, and just walk through all the doors, all the open doors that God has destined for you when you are willing to do the work, let it hurt, and really tap into the power of your story, because that is your superpower, your story, not your skill, not your title, but your story.
Says so well. What do you do for fun when you're not out saving the world, making a difference in the lives of other folks? What do you do for fun these days?
Oh boy, I do aerial fitness. I like to travel. I like spending time with my family, and I like really just serving. It is one of the things that just brings me joy, right? It just brings me joy. It brings me joy to see someone else follow their dream, to see someone else, really understand and start to see their worth, because I can empathize with them and I can relate to them, because that was me. But see, I had to walk through this path so that way I can recognize it, so then I can leave the clues. See, listen, success leaves clues, and I'm leaving a whole bunch of them. So it's up to the individual whether they want to pick up the breadcrumbs or not. There's you go back to that choice. So, but I do a lot of fun stuff. So I'm not all this, but I do have fun.
All right, where's one of your favorite places to travel? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not gonna let her leave you hanging. Don't worry. I know she says she likes to travel. We want to know one place she likes to travel to. We're just all nosy. I know maybe I'm the only one, so y'all just eavesdrop on the conversation. But what's one place you like to travel to?
One of the places that I recently was just there like a few months ago. One of my places that I'm starting to fall in love with is Barbados. Barbados and
Mm.
Bahamas are my top two. I haven't ventured to other areas too much because I keep going back there, and I've been to some of the other islands. I love the islands. I love Hawaii. I've been to India. I've been to London. I still have places to put the pen on. So I'm open. I
Ah,
listen. I've even been to Madison, Wisconsin. Like, so it doesn't even have to be. I was like, what the heck is in Madison, Wisconsin? But guess
yeah,
what? It was
yeah.
pretty cool there. So I'm open to exploring different places and spaces, because that's how you learn. Life is about learning. Never stop learning. And I think that's what I do for fun. I like to learn. I'm, that's my inner geek, so I make it look good. That's all I'm going to say.
I love it. Well, let me say thank you so much. Before we come down the home stretch, how can folks best connect with you? Two-part question. Number one, what type of clients are you looking to work with these days? And number two,
Okay.
how can folks best connect with you so they can stay in this conversation over and beyond the time that you and I have today?
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for your team. Thank you for just bringing this platform. It's just amazing. And thank you for seeing value in what I had to share with your audience. And I hope they definitely got something from it. So the people that I'm looking for are just that, people who want to really tap into the power of their story, like really, really dig deep. Like, I'm gonna help you dig deep. It's not gonna be easy, but trust and believe life will change for you once you dig into your story. And that's what I'm here for. I help build community. I help build, just this whole camaraderie around your story. So I'm the one to help you with that. And how you can follow me, you can follow me on Instagram, Be Magnified. BE, then the word magnified. That's one of the ways you can follow me on social media. And then you can just go to my LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is Dr. Carolyn Wilson. And that's the best way that you can reach me and follow me, and look forward to working with many of you.
Well, let me say thank you so much for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show. We appreciate it. Can't wait to have you back again soon.
I can't wait to be back.
And thank you to
All
viewers.
right.
Thank you for tuning in, by the way. And I never get tired of reminding you, because without you, there is no show, by the way. There's no show. So I never get tired of reminding you every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, no matter what's going on in your life, by the way, whether you're doing really, really well and there's another gear you're trying to get to, or you've been hit with the punch that you never saw coming. The one thing I do believe with every fiber in my heart is that today is your January 1st. And because of just that one reason alone, I believe your best is still yet to come. Your best is yet to come. Your best is yet to come. With that being said, my name hasn't changed. H.E.R. Brown, the Happy Entrepreneur. Make it a great day, everyone. And we'll make some good things happen. We connect again next time. God bless. And we'll see you guys on the other side. Peace. We out of here.